Welcome to the WIHS Journal. On today's broadcast, I'll be talking to Pastor David Townsley of Terryville. He's from the Riverside Baptist Church. Today we'll be talking about the Wicked Fun Club that moved next door to the church, illegally moving into the town in violation of multiple zoning rules. Stay tuned to see how you can help with your prayers and how you can attend the upcoming meeting. I'm just going to let you take it away, the reason why you contacted WIHS. So okay. Tell our listeners all the details, and then we'll get into some questions and how we can help you.
Yeah, so back in November, I started seeing folks parking in the parking lot, and we share a parking lot and a driveway with a building next door to us. And so we jointly use the parking lot, but they were very late at night. So it seemed kind of unusual when we first started noticing the pattern. They were there Thursday, Friday, Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Wow. And
we had people getting out. They're dressed formally like they're going to go to a fancy restaurant, mostly couples. And I couldn't think of what business would be open at those times except what it ended up being. And so the Lord made a way that we were able to find out exactly what was going on. But it took about 3 months. It was the last day of January. And we were able to get specific information that it was an adult-oriented business. We got the information to the police just to have them check it out to see what was going on. I was pretty sure it wasn't allowed in the zoning, but I didn't know for sure. And so they did an investigation, and it came back that there were no state or federal violations as far as the law is concerned. But the town said, well, we've got 7 violations relating to the zoning.
Wow.
And so from there, the town issued a cease and desist letter, and the business owner of this adult club, they said, well, we're going to file an appeal. So they filed an appeal against it. And so that brings us to a zoning meeting on Tuesday, April 29th at 7 o'clock. At the Plymouth Town Hall, and they're trying to get this exempted from all these different zoning aspects so they can continue operating.
Yeah. And, the irony is it's called the Wicked Fun Club. The enemy is so ugly. How has it affected your parishioners and your pastoral life by having this Wicked Fun Club move in? They moved in the night because they knew it was wrong. How has it affected you and your church?
Right. The church didn't know about it for a few months. So I don't know if I could say that it's directly affected the church in a negative way. I believe that there's spiritual dynamics with everything.
Yes.
And so something just seemed off when we first started realizing something was going on, but we weren't sure what it is. The biggest thing is it's just not right. Everyone else follows the zoning. Why don't they follow the zoning? It's not allowed in town. And the zoning is a promise that certain things won't be in certain parts of town so that it doesn't create a conflict. So it has created a conflict in the sense of people preparing for church and then there are the cars there, sort of thing. But it's not been a clash, so to speak.
Have you ever tried to go talk to the owner and try to pray with him or anything like that?
I talked to the owner after some of the TV interviews with some of the news. He wanted to talk to me. And so I met with him. We just talked in the parking lot for about 5 minutes, and he kind of went through a series of arguments that he had used on the news. And so I listened to him, and then he stopped, and he said, well, he was kind of waiting for me to jump in, I think, and kind of argue with him. And he said, well, is that all you've got? And I said, well, we don't agree. You know, I listened to what you said. I understand what you're saying. I just don't agree. And so he found that quite strange. I don't think he knew what to do with that. But
I bet.
In there, I was able to, near the end of the conversation, I was able to tell him that, I don't have anything against you personally. I understand you're trying to make a living just like everyone else. But, we don't agree with what you're doing. But I was able to give him the gospel and talk to him a little bit.
Wow.
And so
that's awesome.
that kind of ended the conversation.
Yeah.
He said, well, I'm Lutheran, and that was kind of it.
Yeah. If you are tuning in right now to this broadcast, I am speaking to Pastor David Townsley of Terryville. We are talking about the Wicked Fun Club that moved right next door to the Riverside Baptist Church in Terryville, also known as Plymouth, Connecticut. So they need your help. They need your prayers. They need you to show up at this location. And I know that you also have been in many different news outlets. You want to talk about that and news outlets that has helped you?
Well, with the news outlets, the interesting thing about the TV news is there's not enough time to really get into any details.
Yes.
They're just going to give you a short soundbite, and that's it. So at one point, I mentioned something about a loophole, and then they cut off about 3/4 of what I was saying. And the loophole is that the towns don't really have the resources that they need to deal with these zoning issues in this particular case. So the only thing our town can do is they sent in the lawyer who was trying to work with them, and in the end, the club owner said, we're just going to appeal this. And so the news got out to the news media, so it was a big problem in the sense that it caused a big commotion in town. So there is a loophole, but the issue is more that the municipalities don't really have the legal resources that they need to be able to handle that.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of the Bible verse, Exodus 14:14, that the Lord will fight this battle for you. But and you're doing that by reaching out to a Christian station and everything else. So what kind of potential outcomes of the ZBA appeal, and how may they impact the community and the business?
Well, obviously the zoning could say we'll let them do whatever they want. That's one option. I think that's a terrible option in town because of the 7 zoning violations.
Yes.
Basically, you'd be saying we're just going to throw out the entire zoning and everybody could do what they want. So long term, that's not a great plan for the town, and I don't think that's the right thing for the town at all. The other thing they could do is say, hey, you're breaking our zoning laws, so no, we're not going to allow you to do anything else. We've re-looked at it, and it is what it is, and you're still in violation. And the club owner has promised that he's going to sue the town and file an injunction so that he doesn't have any fines. So the potential long-term issue could be they could be there another 6 months to a year operating still illegally if all those things were to happen.
God will fight this battle for you. Obviously, there's a reason why I believe that this is happening. Something radical that God can do with this. Explain the situation to our listeners, how they can more help. Specific prayer points you want to talk about?
Sure. Well, one thing we're praying is for God to work in the situation and God to get the glory from this. And we're praying that the club will close and not be able to operate. We've been holding a prayer meeting at the church to pray in that direction. Again, you could pray that on a state level, we need a different law passed so that there's some state oversight and there's that it would require a new license for these adult-oriented businesses in the state, and that would provide the enforcement that would be needed to prevent this type of situation from happening somewhere else. Because they could just pack things up and they could pick pretty much any town in Connecticut and just do the same thing. Right now, we're just focused on the zoning meeting and getting as many folks out as we can.
The zoning meeting, tell our listeners again, when is it, where is it, and we'll be praying specifically for that if they can make that meeting.
Sure. Yeah, they would need to be a resident of Terryville or Plymouth, and if they are, you can write a letter. You can email a letter into the town hall, and I can give you the contact information for that. If they're a resident, they could also attend the meeting, or they could also speak at the meeting, be a maximum of 3 minutes. And that's going to be on Tuesday, April 29th, beginning at 7 o'clock, and it's probably going to be a long meeting.
Well, I'm so sorry you had to deal with this, the Wicked Fun Club moving next to the church that you have established for so many years. Any other details that you would like to convey to our listeners before we close the broadcast today?
No, I think just prayer is really the most important thing. Just pray for God to get the glory and for God to work in this situation.
Maybe you can just leave your details of the church and all that stuff too.
Sure. I'm Pastor David Townsley, Riverside Baptist Church in Terryville, Connecticut, 23 Main Street.
Once again on the broadcast with us was Pastor David Townsley of the Riverside Baptist Church in Terryville. talking about the Wicked Fun Club that moved in secretly and illegally into the town right next to the church in violation of multiple zoning rules. If you would like more details about to attend the meeting that will take place this coming Tuesday in the town hall, if you're a resident, you can attend. Otherwise, be praying for the situation. For WIHS, I'm Anissa Porticelli.